Hey,
Hello.
Hey, Adam, how's it going?
outstanding yourself.
Living the dream.
Doing great. Welcome to Unity Evolved.
Thank
Yes,
you. I hope
welcome.
that you are being simulcast right now at adamversustheman.com/live because our show, The Freedom Line, ended 30 minutes ago, but the book, Freedom, just got here today. So I'm doing like a special extended session while I sit here and sign covers for people that ordered signed copies of the book.
Added bonus. How's it going,
Yeah.
everybody from Adam versus Man?
Awesome. Hey.
I don't know if anybody's listening. It's half an hour late, but I'm still I'm talking to people on Twitter. Someone told me to put a shoe on my head. And
Yeah, you put a flip flop.
exactly. That's the
Righteous.
best under the circumstances. But we aim to please here at thefreedomline.com. And now there are a lot of people we're going to be making happy with this book. And I really appreciate you guys bringing me on explicitly for the purpose of shameless promotion.
Oh, absolutely. It's all about the shameless plug. Before we get to the book, I didn't get a chance to smoke with you
Hey.
on air with your show, so I'd like to smoke with you now.
We already got Sounds beautiful. I need one of those.
You have no idea.
Same here.
Happy Civil Disobedience Day, everyone.
Same here.
Because every day is Civil Disobedience Day.
To be so free that your very existence is an act of defiance.
Hey, I didn't read the book. I listened to it, and hearing it coming from your mouth the entire time, I think it made it more realistic, I guess.
Hey, you know what? I want to set something straight about the vernacular there about when you listen to a book, because a lot of people listen to audiobooks now, and a lot of people proportionally have listened to Freedom compared to have downloaded one of the read versions, the PDF or something
I do
like
have
that.
it on my phone as a PDF version, so I am able to scroll through the different pages. I've
See-
been waiting for the actual physical book to come out for a long time.
Yeah, but about saying that you said you didn't read it, I'm pretty sure that if you listen to it, you can, in today's world, you can say you read the book. Because what they're teaching kids in high school these days is if you just like stare at the cover for 5 minutes, that counts as having read a book. The standards are that much lower.
You are speaking my language. I'm a public school teacher.
Yeah, but I really think that you retain a lot more when you actually physically read the words off of a page or a screen or what have you.
So you're going to come at my audience with this obscene intellectualism. Oh, I didn't read the book. I just listened to it. Really? Come on.
No. I'm just saying I didn't.
It really depends on what kind of way you learn the best.
Yeah,
Actually,
that's what I'm saying. I retain better when I read it, but I didn't read it. I just listened to it.
Well,
But
one
I
of the
loved
things-
it, and I listened to it over and over again.
Well, thank you. Well, one of the things that I predicted with this is that people would listen to it and then want to go back and read it slowly on their own time and really absorb it and kind of master the material and internalize it by considering. But let me take a step back, if I may, before talking about the book itself, and instead talking about the principle that motivated me to write this book and to create this tool for outreach, because that's really what I think of it as. And I've thought I could say my activism goes back to high school, but really college with libertarians, with the Libertarian Club on campus. But that was all sort of like my pre-activism phase. It wasn't until I got out of the Marines and was active with Iraq Veterans Against the War, and then was with ran for office, and then really got into media production and activism then. But I can say I've been an activist, as a conscientious libertarian since 2007. So, wow, that's really a long time now. Going on 7 years here. And for a long time, I've thought that the most effective thing we can do is to grow the movement. If we want to achieve to win converts, people who embrace freedom as a value, who embrace it as a philosophical, moral concept. And a lot of what I've done has been great activism, but on the scope of that ruthless measurement of efficiency, really not that great. And when I came up with the idea for this book, and unlike any similar manifesto, It is not Amerocentric. It is not academic. It is not judgmental. It is global in its applicability to the modern phenomenon of statism. It tells it how it is. There's no opinion, conjecture, or speculation. It's all straightforward, unobjectionable facts. And I was like, wait a second, nobody's written this book before? Like, this is crazy. Like this dumbass, the guy who's sitting in solitary confinement right now, like, he's the one that gets to write this book, to come up with this actual outreach tool. And I wrote it to be the most efficient, most effective way to take someone from zero to I get it. And there are lots of other people doing great work. I know that we converted a lot of people with the old show that I was doing, Adam versus the Man, in a slow and efficient way.
Hey, Adam,
and
I have a question.
Sure.
This is Hef. Just wondering about the book that you wrote it in solitary confinement, right?
I started it. I came up with the idea, and I wrote the most important section. But It wasn't until I got out that I was able to finish it, unfortunately.
Oh, okay. I was wondering if you were able to start it. Do you think you would have started the same way if you never went to jail? Like, would those ideas come up, and would you start that book living out?
Perhaps. I'd like to think eventually, but I'm a pretty slow learner, and I like to learn the hard way. That's why I joined the Marines. That's why I did civil disobedience the way that I did.
Well, Adam, we definitely missed you at Porkfest this year. We devoted the podcast just to actually certain passages of your audiobook. And you were noticeably absent. I mean, everyone was talking about your situation. So we hope to see you next year.
Definitely. Well, I didn't think this year that it was that big of a deal, and I was just in a logistical situation where I wasn't able to make it. But since we just announced, I'm going on the road for the next year. I'm going to be living out of an RV trailer. What's that?
I just heard you talk about it on your show, RV trailer, and you're going to be funded through donations, like Bitcoins and whatnot.
Yeah, well, we're going to do a crowdfunder to get this thing going, but if I have to bootstrap it and just live on dog food and soy milk for a year, I'm okay with that.
Do you have solar panels and stuff set up?
What's that?
Do you have like solar panels or things that will help you?
Well, I'm going to keep doing my podcast. Mm-hmm. We're going to keep producing YouTube videos, and I'm going to maintain that source of income. And we're selling the book right now, and it's selling pretty well. We're very happy with it. People are buying 100 packs because they've read it online, and they're like, "Yep, this is the book that we want to share with all of our friends. This is the ultimate outreach tool," and they're taking it as that. That's the greatest compliment that I can get, and the reception of this book so far has lived up to my expectations. So I know that there are people who are already on board with this with me, that want to support this, that want to make this happen, that are going to contribute, that are going to keep buying the book. And by the way, the logo is freaking badass. I wish I could say I completely came up with it or did the art myself. I just sort of guided the process.
I've seen somebody with a tattoo already of it, I think on the neck.
On what? Yeah, it was a woman who got it on the back of her neck. Who described, and the cool thing about that isn't like, oh, cool, someone got the tattoo. It's that, to me, the story behind it is what's really cool, is that it was a woman who, before she read the book, described herself as completely apolitical. And I would like to think now describes herself as I do, as anti-political. And she listened to the audiobook once and was like, yep, I'll get that tattoo. That was the rapid rate of conversion there. 3 hours of an audiobook.
How does it feel to make that much of an impact at just one person's life, and just to do it over and over again?
Well, wow. I try not to think about it in those terms. It's just one. It's always like I don't. Man,
and you're literally Morpheus waking Neo up over and over again. Because I think every person is Neo. So
now you're just trying to kiss my ass. I'd like to think that people send me emails on a pretty regular basis saying that Adam versus the Man woke them up, or that I've woken them up slowly over time with my media production or with different activism or with one speech here or there or whatever it was. But this is the acceleration of that, and I've never really stepped back and thought about how many people have I personally been able to touch or motivated or inspired or brought to the message, and it's pretty humbling because every one, is so important. And I've spent time dealing with my family members. And if you haven't spoken to your family yet, you're starting in the wrong place. But I've dealt with that, and it's ultimately that one-on-one outreach that's going to grow the movement. And I would hope that my book is just, I should say our book, because I had a lot of help writing it. Our book is going to be one very effective tool in that process. But really it's about finding what about the message we love and enjoy and makes our lives better and sharing it with other people. So to think that I'm achieving that on some kind of scale is beyond my comprehension in a good way.
Well, remind our listeners, obviously you're simulcasting, but remind our listeners how we can get a hard copy of your book.
TheFreedomLine.com is the place to go right now. And that's it, TheFreedomLine.com. And really appreciate that. But for those of you who can be in Los Angeles this weekend, on Saturday, we're having a book release party, and we're giving away free signed copies of the book. So if you can come to LA, that information is on our Facebook page, facebook.com/Adam Charles Kokesh.
Cool.
That reminds me of Adam Charles Kokesh, right? Is that a new Facebook page?
No, that's just my personal page, and I kind of go back and forth with Facebook. I've done a lot of shit talking on Facebook. I shouldn't say that, because that makes it sound like I'm just another one of these people I am decrying for being overly involved in Facebook drama. No, but I've been very critical about Facebook as a platform, and one of the frustrations has been with pages. So this is not such a big deal, but I'm just sort of abandoning the big fan page and transitioning to just using my personal page and letting people follow me there.
That kind of reminds me. If you don't, I know you said you learned a lot of lessons from your experience in prison, and if you could do it, and you kind of said if you could do it all over again, you might do it in a different way. But is there anything? Though I remember the last interview you had was a late night session with Alex Jones, and yeah. I think it was only minutes later that you were busted in on. Now, Alex was pretty concerned audibly about your safety. Do you think that there was a bit of irony and his warnings to you, and do you kind of heed them? What else have you taken out of it in terms of what somebody like that was able to provide despite being on a different philosophical basis when you were speaking to him?
Oh, that's a really dense question. Forgive me if I don't hit on every point of that, but I have immense respect for Alex Jones. And just on our show tonight, one of the last callers and I got into this a little bit, that Alex has been an incredible gateway to the philosophy, like Ron Paul in his candidacy, when he did not speak from the philosophy, but had an incredible impact by getting people to read Rothbard. And that, similarly, Alex Jones has had that very, very powerful gateway effect to the philosophy. But I would go a step further and say that, Alex Jones, for all the stuff that people make fun of him, I really hate to see people call him COINTELPRO or controlled opposition. Controlled opposition, you can make an argument for that in some roundabout way, but he is genuine in what he believes and in what he does, and he has an incredible positive impact on the world. And he is going through somewhat of a philosophical discovery process himself in a very honest way that reflects what a lot of people in the broader movement have gone through. And, for me, it was a 10-year process. And I imagine when you're as intelligent and passionate and committed as he is in covering the news and bringing people the truth, and I will say waking them up, if not philosophically, very much so to the nature of government, and that is incredibly valuable and an important step in that process usually. And he's really come around in his thinking and what he's advocating as well. So I'm not surprised that he was one of my biggest supporters when I was in jail, and I'm very grateful for that.
I think he was one of the only people that was actually actively covering updates in your position. I would notably was complaining that you weren't getting coverage, And when you say COINTELPRO, I know that a lot of people just on anywhere from Daily Paul to Ron Paul forums would call you COINTELPRO. And I met you in person back in 2012 in the New Hampshire Ron Paul campaign. And people in there, I'm sure you recall Vermin Supreme, people in there were calling Vermin Supreme COINTELPRO. It's an absolutely asinine thing that the people just start to believe that everything around them is a conspiracy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. You think Alex Jones is COINTELPRO? You might be listening to too much Alex Jones.
Yeah, I think so. That's my criticism. But what do you think you take out of actually after writing the book in prison while you had a light on 24 hours a day? I know I don't have an easy time sleeping with in a dark room. How did you adjust to that? At some point, do you actually lose will, like the will to fight on? It seems like a process of being broken.
Point when I agreed to process. I wouldn't say I was broken, but I did. The reason I was in that uncomfortable situation at first was because I refused to let them take my picture or cooperate for fingerprints, and in a sense, you can say I caved on that. But sleep is, dude, I'm terrible with sleep, and part of it is my own manic professionalism, if you will. Although it'd be hard pressed to really describe myself as a professional anything. I do struggle with sleep a lot. I understand it, but when you're in jail, in solitary at least, you can sleep whenever the hell you want. I mean, you don't have a job. You don't have to they'll wake you up all the time, but you get very good at falling asleep, not necessarily staying asleep because that's kind of the useless skill. But
how often do they come to wake you up, and what for? Just to be.
Well, sometimes it was checks. Sometimes it was stuff you could sleep through. I mean, it depended. I was in. Let's see. First, I was in solitary in that weird holding cell in Fairfax. Then I was in solitary in Fairfax. Then I was in processing in D.C. Then I was in solitary. Oh no! Then I was for just less than a day. I was in normal high security in the main DC jail. Then I was in solitary in the DC jail. Then I was in holding in the CTF, which is the private jail next door. And then I was in general population in the jail next door. And each of those places were for at least a few days. So it was always a different circumstance and a different routine and a different set of guards. And that's actually generally typical until you get where you're settled in the system, so to speak. So it was always different. But I had plenty of time to sleep. And, I got it sometimes in lots of small chunks. But in jail, it was really the least of my problems. I slept very well in general. Mm-hmm. Better than I have since I got out, actually. On average, I slept more hours per night in jail than I have since I've been out.
Now that you can talk, you made that YouTube video recently to kind of talking about the court case. Is it safe now that you can actually speak about the case without worrying about repercussions about something that you say?
Yeah, more or less. I still got to be a little bit. Shoot. I mean, I always say, fucking, you can ask whatever you want. If I dodge it, don't be a dick about it. If you think I'm dodging it for legal reasons. But no, I don't have the same liability that I used to, certainly. But, I am on probation in D.C. until January of year after next. So I do have to be careful about that. And we're trying to I'm on supervised probation. So if I'm a good little citizen, I might get transferred to unsupervised probation, and it'd be one less thing for me to worry about.
Supervised, we can assume then that they're trying to listen into on your show, making sure
No. You would think supervised just means I have to call in every 24 hours to see if I got to pee in a cup the next day, and I gotta go meet with a probation officer once a month, and I got to get permission to travel, and it's just they hold you back. And I want to do a video at some point just about the experience of being on probation, because I think a lot of people who haven't don't really appreciate what an ineffective pain in the ass it is, and how you're not rehabilitating, you're not supervising, you're not helping, you're just making life more difficult for someone and ripping them off. I pay $50 a month for the privilege of being on probation here.
Sounds and as a felon, now you don't also, or kind of quote unquote, as a felon, they also took away your ability to have firearms, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, it sounds like that's a great deal, and it sounds like they've definitely defended your rights. Well, we obviously come from a voluntarist point of view, but we also Heflin himself comes from one of the zeitgeist movements. He as our producer, he kind of has this thing where he calls what's Hef? Can you tell Kokesh about Friedenberg?
Well, I was wondering if I could bounce an idea off you, Adam, if you don't mind. It's just
please.
Like I call it a fantasy, but one of my fantasies of like something that I think would be good for a transition into something out of the government system that we have. It's something better. And so I thought of Friedenberg. I just put that name out, which totally sounds awesome right next to your book. Freedom and Friedenberg. Anyway, it's, you know how the Bilderberg group conferences, they're considered to be mysterious and quiet and closed doors, and it's a lot of very important people, right?
Right.
Okay, so Friedenberg would be the backwards, like the opposite of that, where it would be an open meeting with very interesting people, very intellectual people together talking about a couple of different very important subjects that we talk about, like in the freedom movement, and also things people should know about, like the scientific method. How can we make a transition useful?
Every liberty-oriented celebration that there is over the entire year, wrapped into one, with all the greatest minds in the liberty movement in one.
The ones that have a lot of following,
ideas off each other.
Yeah,
a lot of. Mm-hmm. I love the idea of doing like a counter Bilderberg and having something like the Freedom Council, of people who, I don't know,
all open on the internet where everybody can see it, simulcasted. How do you say? On everybody's podcast / show. Like you would transmit it live.
Here's the trick. And I've been to a lot of events that people thought, oh, well, if we build it, they will come. And I've been to events like, awesome lineups of great speakers, and people just assume that, and they put a ton of effort into the event, and, the organization and the facility, and they put no effort into promotion. And people don't have a reason to be there. And that's really the trick. And this has been sort of a trend. But even events that are well promoted in the movement aren't attended like they used to be. And I think there's a certain expectation that something's going to be digital. If you're going to do an event in person, you have to give people a reason to be there in person. And I know this is kind of inside baseball stuff, so stop me if you guys think I'm rambling or on this topic for too long. But what is the purpose of a specific event? Is it something that's going to wake people up? Is it going to draw people in? Or, as so many of them end up, is it really just part of the insular, self-congratulatory circle jerk conversation that a lot of pockets of the movement have
Actually,
I think the Friedenberg Conference would focus on goal-oriented objectives. And real quick, I didn't get to it before we got the ball rolling. We have the whole cast here. We have Mrs. Mandy Parsons,
hey,
who does our voluntary education. Forgot to introduce her to you, Adam.
Yeah, actually, I had the extreme pleasure of meeting you back in 2012 at the Veterans for Ron Paul March.
Well, if I may, just about see an event like that is you have the impetus of a presidential campaign that motivates people. And as for the idea of a counter Bilderberg, I'm there. I'm totally excited by that. I want to be a part of it. Question is there a market for exactly that event? And I hope there is. I hope that as we grow the movement, there will be. Although I think right now,
for example,
we're still so far behind.
I think this would be very useful for a transition like that, because it's amazing. You were like in my choice to bring to this the angle of the activism, and come on, we can all join. Everybody has their own strengths in here. For example, we got I also wanted Alex Jones to be in there. We can have Jack Spirko. Have you ever heard of Jack Spirko? The Survival Podcast?
The Survival Podcast.
Dude,
yeah, he's great.
He can bring an awesome angle that we all need to know about, like the 6 basic human needs. We all in the smallest primal sense need just food, water, shelter, energy, security, and health and sanitation, right? But of course, we can make. Anyway, let me continue. Jesse Ventura. I have Jack Fresco, and Peter Joseph also. Joe Rogan, Stefan Molyneux. All these people. You have Dan Carlin, which I think he would be important. He could document this because he's a history guy. He could document this whole thing, and right let's say in the center of the. It could be a real or a online meeting table, that large meeting table. Right in the middle could be like a fucking reset button, where we all agree on at least something on how we can better ourselves. Let's say we all need to realize that authority, blind obedience to authority is bad. Now we should at least check ourselves on what kind of anyway. It needs more polish. I'd even hope people would be interested in that.
It needs a little bit more polish, but that's what we're doing here. Every week we do a Friedeberg candidacy where we shine the light on one of them, and we go over their strengths, their weaknesses, what they could bring, what other people could bring, and
they need to ignore the stuff that they disagree on, and just come there and speak on what they all agree on. Okay, we can narrow this down, make it easy for the people for the people who are watching this to understand what the whole meeting is about. And
I would say that Adam could relate to this though, because he had Peter Joseph on his show, and I'm sure Adam, you can speak to this personally, but it was a much more successful discussion than when Stefan Molyneux had Peter Joseph on his show. And it's not to say that Stefan Molyneux isn't good at reaching out to other people. It's just saying that once you come off, two people that might agree on 95% of things to abolish government as its entity, right? They have those two fundamental agreements, but yet they come off as if they're sworn enemies that don't agree on the non-aggression principle whatsoever.
Yeah.
And I was at the Friedenberg candidacy was what, from if I could speak for you a little bit, it sounds like a place that people could actually put those differences aside and focus on the strengths that they actually have together. Yeah. Because what's the best way to abolish government today?
Well, this is a great vision for a conversation. The question is, and for I think in a sense the direction that I'm really behind, and as you pointed out, I mean it's something that I've at least in some way lived up to, I'd like to think, and I see this, I don't see the how this comes together as an event versus just this is the natural course of the conversation. This is how people are doing it. This is what is already happening. You don't have to fantasize about bringing this together as a singular event or under a single banner to control. This is just the beautiful course of the conversation that we're all a part of right now.
Right. Which I think is the beauty of the ideas of decentralization. Mm-hmm. The fact that it happens everywhere.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just wondering because I guess this would be like a mass. It would be everybody's friend would have at least seen this, let's say, meeting happen, and then they would share it with their friends, and your mom would end up with a copy of it, and she'll see and she'll understand. All these points make sense. Yes, government is.
I get freedom for now.
But there was one last thing I wanted to touch upon, and it did have to come with the most important to reach out to first are people in your family. And it really is an important point because I've noticed that one of the most difficult people that I actually have trouble speaking to is my own mother. Right? I mean, and it's something that I notice is one of the most difficult conversions in my life. In fact, she still to this day, right? Well, it wants to put Hillary Clinton signs outside the yard, and I mean, I came home during the last campaign in 2012, and I burned an Obama sign that I saw was in front of her yard, and she got really upset at me, and reasonably so. I'm destroying her property that she acquired, and I explained myself as saying, well, you know that this guy promotes mass murder. I don't understand how you intellectually could be against war and yet still promote this kind of standard way of thinking. And I feel like that is like the biggest disconnect, because I'm family, there's this expectation that I need to accept her way of thinking, and it's a difficult issue to address.
Well, there's one argument that Stefan Molyneux came up with that I think is particularly effective for family members, and this is where marijuana is a great issue. And it's that's just sort of a typical one. I mean, you got to come up with one that's appropriate for your situation, your relationship. But it's the against me argument. So it's would you use violence against me for disagreeing? Because if you say that, smoking pot is bad and should be illegal, and I say that smoking pot is wonderful and helps with my PTSD symptoms and, makes me sleep better, and is effectively harmless. In fact, it makes me a better driver. Well, maybe that's a different issue. But and I say, well, I'm free to disagree, right? But can I act on my disagreement? And I say, no, of course not. If there's a consensus, then we're going to use, we're going to say you can't smoke pot, and that's because we say so. And then you say, well, if you're going to use the government to do that, to enforce that idea that smoking pot is bad, you realize that means that if I smoke pot, you're okay with violence being used against me for disagreeing and acting on my disagreement. And what this argument does, and you can see where this is going, and you can, Stefan has a 2-hour version of the explanation, but it's personalizing the violence of government. And you can apply it to taxes, you can apply it to war, you can apply it to anything that you disagree with, and anything that's funded by the theft of taxation, and say, so because I don't want to support this, you're saying that you're okay with either stealing my income or using the violence of government against me for not going along with your opinion.
That's a great point. And personally, I've used that argument, and I've noticed that I'm always accused as being an elitist, or I know more than her, or I'm accusing her of being a lesser person.
Like you're coming up condescendingly.
Exactly. And it's something, because I've used this argument, and it seems to work with people that are my friends. But when it comes to my family, my brother and my mother are two people that just come off and say, oh, I'm an elitist intellectual. And it's kind of, if that makes me an elitist intellectual, I'm asking if they want to put me in jail for something that they agree that is wrong, but they'll still support me going to jail if I do it. I don't see how they could possibly say that they love me in another different sentence.
Yeah, that's why it's really effective in that environment. But
well,
if
Adam,
stranger, they're going to be like, yeah, I don't care about you, just like nobody else that I care about affected by the status of my support. Therefore, yeah, I don't have a problem using violence against you. But again, if I may take it back to the book, when you get that, one of the cool things about handing someone this book, if you're not capable of, getting them to sit and listen to you long enough to really consider what you believe, then you can give them this book and it doesn't have any of that judgment attached to it. That so many other things that you would hand someone in that, that kind of situation to get them to consider the message have that, well, I'm right, I'm intellectually superior, you're wrong kind of thing. And it's really hard to get around that.
Surely is.
Well, I think I would definitely just direct them to chapter 9 of the book, which is True Personal Freedom, where you basically, you put it plain out there that how you live every single day and the choices you make affect your life. And you can choose to either be happy about that or be sad. How you feel is basically your own choice.
Yes, absolutely. And I think a lot of libertarians know that there's this connection between the emotional manipulation and freedom. And I don't think we talk about it enough because it's very, very easy to relate to someone when you can have that shared emotional experience of, well, I had this experience under statism. I went to jail. I was arrested or whatever the case may be. And you have that, you understand that you are being emotionally manipulated. And it's one thing to identify propaganda, it's one thing to identify fear-mongering, but the whole other thing that you point out that I think is captured fairly well in Chapter 9, especially Section 4, is that your state of mind is your choice. And that if you go to the opposite of emotional control, what is emotional freedom? And being able to choose your own demeanor at any time, being able to be in absolute self-control, being free of the emotional manipulation of external influence, including your immediate physical, practical circumstance, that's a different kind of freedom that is very much connected to social, political, or the general definition of freedom. And I think when people talk about that more and we're able to realize like that's a big part of what makes us happier by being free thinkers, then we'll be a lot more effective in sharing it with other people.
But also, I think it takes a lot of introspection, and you have to actually have time to sit down and think about what you're even feeling. Because right now in these days, people just don't have time. They don't have the moment in the day to stop and say, how am I actually feeling right now? And is this how I'm actually going to portray myself?
Are you trying to say that the government is emotionally manipulating us into feeling overwhelmed, perhaps?
More than likely. I think it's definitely a possibility. They put out a campaign of fear just to keep us in a high state of emotional activity.
It's working pretty horribly, I have to say.
Yeah, but I think if more people got to hear and read such succinct ideas as are put into this book, that they would have a better grasp of what's really going on. And my biggest issue right now is how to get them to even pick up the book, because I've given my friends, I go to the secondhand bookstores all the time. Whenever I see anything that's remotely related to freedom, I pick it up. Like in 1984. Brave New World. I've given books out to everyone. When I went to PorkFest, I picked up a bunch of copies of Bastiat's The Law and Authoritarian Sociopathy, and I give them out to people, and they just don't even read them. They don't even pick them up. How do you even get them to open the cover?
I don't know. I'll get back to you in a year when I've got experience of this kind of outreach. And I'm only half joking when I say that, because I ran for Congress. I've done individual activism of every stripe, and I've done one-on-one outreach where you're doing this sort of thing. But this is a brave new world. The libertarian, I meant to say something else before when you guys asked. I'm sorry, I forget who asked if I was. What I thought about changing people's lives and having that impact where people say, Adam, your work woke me up, or you inspired me to get a tattoo. And everything I've done in my life as an activist will be rendered insignificant by this book if it meets my lowest of expectations for it. And I say that with all modesty about what I've accomplished so far. But this book, there will be a point at which, we will look back on the history of the movement and be like, there was a time before we had this book in our hands as a tool for outreach. And there was a time after that when we used it to bring in the 10 to 20% or so of the population that right now is already ready to hear this message. And there will be books written about how to get people to read this book. There will be maybe just forum threads. Maybe books is an exaggeration. Maybe I'll write a book. I am writing a series based on this, by the way, called The Encyclopedia of Freedom. So we look forward to that after the tour is done. But I got to get out and plant all the seeds for this, sow all the seeds of freedom that I can. So there's a lot of different approaches. The one that I like is, it's funny because I just did this before coming on your show, and they're sort of like in between time. But here's my pitch. It's very simple, very straightforward. And I've been doing this all the time now. Thank you for banking with Bank of America. Is there anything else I can do for you, sir? Yes, there is, actually. I have a question. You know that mainstream story about the world we're supposed to believe? That government is always good and necessary? That
I'm sorry, excuse me? What is mainstream?
Yeah, right. The politicians only do what they do because they love us so very much.
Sir, sorry, there's customers behind you.
Yeah, right. No, I do Trader Joe's checking out, too. People while my groceries are getting bagged up. You know how every war the American government has ever fought has been totally just and righteous, and the mainstream media tries to get you to believe all this, like everything's okay and everything lines up okay. And by the time I get like halfway through that, people are going there. Everybody's nodding. They're like, "Oh yeah, I'm hip to that. I know it's bullshit." And you get a really good response from that. And then I say, "Well, you know you're being lied to because you're being taken advantage of on some level, right?" And they go, "No, they're not as eager to admit it," but they go, yeah, I know. And then I say, well, how'd you like to be able to see through all that? How'd you like the code, to be able to see through the matrix? And I say, understanding freedom is, as a universal principle, is like having the secret decoder ring. And then you're less likely to be taken advantage of. Would you like to check that out? Would you like to read that? And they go, yeah, I would check that out. And I always pitch them on how short it is. Hey, it's only 100 pages, 3-hour audiobook. But anyway, so far that's been
active.
But it's, you got to do it 1,000 times before you have an, even significant sample group that you can make any judgment.
By the way, how much was the 100 pack? You said you can get 100 of the books?
100 copies of the book for $139, and you get a T-shirt and a tote bag with that. Pretty badass outreach.
That is not a bad thing. I almost donate that shit just for free without getting anything back. I should at least get 100 bucks and a T-shirt.
Yeah, do it. And we're not. This is the thing. We're not making money off the books. We're really not. And that
I know it seems like you're doing it at cost, right?
More or less, as close to a cost as we can with all the books themselves.
True,
if we're going to make any money, it might be from T-shirts and branding.
Yeah,
but
it's less than $1.50 a piece.
We're oh wait, hold on. We're not doing a shirt with the 100 pack. We're just doing a tote bag. My bad. We have another package with the shirt, so you can check that out. I need to know our products better. But our merch guys are amazing. They put together some great deals, and they understand why we're doing this and why we're trying to build the brand of freedom. And I was so like they helped out with the logo itself too. Man, I can't get over the logo. The logo is so badass. I want to get it tattooed across my back. I can't afford it yet, but when I can, if we raise enough money, maybe I'll get the whole thing tattooed like from shoulder to shoulder.
Who drew it? Who drew the logo?
It was some artist from the Philippines did the first draft of it. On a 99 Designs contest. And then our merch guy tweaked it to my more precise specifications. But I came up with the idea, the concept for it, and just threw it out there, and we got a bunch of different versions. And
big shout out to artists out there. I love how they bring this shit together.
Yeah, well, it's all totally open source now. And we really just want to get the book out. We also have a deal where people can use it as an advertising vehicle. If you want to sponsor a print run of the book, we can do 5,000 copies for $5,000, and you'll
put your brand in there.
Put your full ad on the entire inside of the front cover and the back third of the bottom, the bottom third of the back cover. I'm sorry if I'm stoned and rambling, and Mandy has a question.
I don't really have a question. We were listening to you talk earlier, and you were talking about a write-in campaign for president.
No, I want to wait till 2020 and do it right.
Well, here's the thing, though. If you do decide to do that, I was heavily involved with the grassroots movement here in Georgia for Ron Paul, and we couldn't vote for him because in Georgia you have a very specific way that you have to apply to be a write-in candidate, and of course he did not do that because that was never the intent of him really becoming president. So I was just going to say, if you do go that route, please register in the state of Georgia so we can actually vote for you.
Thank you. There will come a time when we start talking about that and really get into the specifics. I am floored and flattered, and sometimes I think I'm living in the Matrix. Like at some point someone's going to jump out and be like, "No, Adam, your book's terrible, and nobody cares, and we planted all of those reviews," and it's like, people are actually seriously talking about me running for president? That's got to be a joke.
Oh, you should. When we were in Washington after the march, my friend and I actually went to the Jefferson Memorial and started dancing in your honor.
Thank you so much.
I don't think that even if Adam Kokesh was on the bill, could I still bring myself to vote? I just couldn't do that to people.
I'll get you over that too. Don't worry. But see, we're not even talking about that yet because we're talking about planting the seeds. We're talking about laying the groundwork.
And I think Chapter 9, Section 4 is the heart of how to do that. Just being happy and living happy. Because I can't remember who it was the other day, but they said something to the effect of we wake up and we realize everything that's going wrong, and we get so depressed, and then we get angry. And we scream at the top of our lungs to people, come join me in my anger and my depression, and nobody wants that.
Yeah. So that was me. That's what I've been saying since I got out of jail. Yeah. You wake up and you're angry and you're afraid and you're sad, and then you go out and you say, join me in my fear and my anger and my depression. And then
I know.
Screw you. Screw Dancing with the Stars and my wage slave job and my 2.1 kids or whatever it is. And yeah, if you come at them with, hey, this has made my life better, I'm happier as a result, and look at what I'm able to do that you're not, then that's how you're going to win people over.
See, anyway, now my problem right now is I'm literally right now going through a bout of depression just from shit that's going on in life, and I can't seem to pull myself out of it for the life of me. It's been going on for probably 2 or 3 weeks, and just even having the knowledge that it's my choice, it seems to make it easier to fall deeper into it.
Fall deeper into it, then you're choosing to be depressed. Once you're conscientious of that, then it is a choice that you are making. And I know that sounds like an oversimplification, and I don't mean to, disregard the seriousness of real clinical depression, but that it's all in your head. Fundamentally, it's not a chemical thing. There's never been any chemical proof of anything that is linked to depression. It is a way that you are choosing at some level to process the world around you. And maybe it's a longer process for thinking through it. But and this is a fundamental fact of human reality of existence, is that at any given moment that you conscientiously choose to recognize the fact that your demeanor and your outlook is your choice, you are choosing how you be.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably not the best that I'm coming off of 4 days, being dreadfully sick with this stupid respiratory infection that's going through the Midwest.
You got to sleep well.
I woke up this morning and freaking, chugged a bottle of NyQuil and went straight back to bed.
It's SARS, isn't it? You have SARS. Is that what's going on?
It's the new Ebola.
No, we've been claiming that he has Ebola, and as I live in Atlanta, I'm trying to get him to come down here for treatment.
Is this what all the kids in the Midwest are doing these days? Ebola? Is that the latest thing?
It's the new thing right after Cocodri.
He comes from Illinois, so they don't have any good influence around him.
Get out the hazmat suit.
Yeah, no kidding.
Exactly.
Mad cow disease, right?
That's it. He's bringing back mad cow.
Been doing too much mushrooms, man. Damn it.
So it's cannibal cow.
Hey, Adam, what would you, just wondering, what would you be doing, let's say, if the government wasn't fucked up? Or let's say we fixed it, we finally fixed it, we got some good people, really good people up in positions of power, and they dismantled the government, and we're living all peace and happy. What would you be doing? Would you get into some video games? Would you write more books? Would you retire in the beach?
I was about to ask you a question that is kind of a good answer to that, actually.
Okay.
Have you ever done too many mushrooms?
No.
I think Liberty Phoenix is the only one that can answer that.
Yeah,
I have. At Porkfest, I spent the entire day 3 on shrooms. I ate nothing but mushrooms all day and drank nothing but Bacardi 151. I had too many mushrooms that day.
I had the first time with him there, too. In Porkfest, that was my first time shrooming.
Nice. Well, to be honest, though, to answer your question, if we got to that point, first of all, we'd all have whatever drugs we want, like embedded in our little exoskeleton suits that we could just automatically mainline at any time on at will. So the question about drugs is really irrelevant. No, but seriously, I would paint and make music.
You paint and make music?
That's awesome.
Cool.
Yep.
It sounds like you're George Bush in his retirement.
He's a free soul type spirit. And, I have to tell you, when I met you in Washington, I was surprised at how quiet I think you were. I came up to you actually because I used to broadcast with Jared Atkinson.
Yeah, Jared's awesome.
Yeah, Jared is awesome. We were on RonPaulRadio.com together when it was up and running, and he told me to tell you hello. So when I came up to tell you that he said hello, I think I was surprised at just how quiet you were overall.
Yeah, I'm pretty chill in person. I mean, I've kind of gotten away from my like artificial public persona that would give people the impression that I'm just some like loud, obnoxious guy in general, because I'm really not. I'm really pretty chill. Like I was gonna say about sleeping. Sleeping is my one demon. I have like totally abolished, anger and depression and serious frustration from my life. Sleep is the one thing I can't deal with. But I'm in person.
What do you mean you can't deal with it? Like you don't sleep enough? You should be sleeping more, or you don't want to?
Sleep more. No, I should be sleeping more.
Okay.
And I always am teetering on the edge of, manically enjoying life way too much.
I kind of can relate to you on that bit, but there's this thing where it's kind of try to go assert your spirituality. I get this thing where I hit sleep paralysis, and I can't sleep for days because I just know that I'm going to wake up in a state of paralysis, right?
Oh.
I'm not sure if you can relate to that.
You've seen that? I've had a couple of those, like 2, and I thought I was getting attacked by a demon when I was little.
Go ahead, Adam. Though.
Crazy.
Oh, that's it. I mean, I guess I sleep better when I can smoke pot before I go to bed.
I'll have to try.
I don't have dreams or nightmares or anything that wake me up.
But I do understand enjoying life way too much and not wanting to miss a second of it.
Yeah,
I think that's a great note to go out on.
Yeah, that's what it comes down to, is that, if I understand that missing sleep is often, a sacrifice for my health in the long run, but it's sort of like, yeah, but I have a lot of good reason to be making that conscientiously now, and I'd rather err on the side of sleeping too little than sleeping too much, that's for sure.
As would I. Well, I mean, Adam, I appreciate you taking the time to speak with us, especially on the fly like this.
No worries.
One last time, just plug the website for your book, so I'll leave you.
Thank you. Obviously, a classically trained broadcaster, you are.
Absolutely.
Someone, Ian from Free Talk Live referred to me as that once, and I was like, I don't know where you got that idea. I just fell off a turnip truck over here.
He was one of my choices in Friedenberg, by the way.
Yeah, right. Excellent.
Yeah. But
no, I mean, I started with a radio show, and he thought that meant I was classically trained in radio. But no, it's been a long journey, and the most important thing that I want to plug for where I'm at now is let us all who care about the goal of achieving a free society be mercilessly ruthless in assessing our efficiency in what we're doing as it contributes to the cause of actually waking people up and changing the way people fundamentally think, because we are really behind as a movement. To think that we're, even really more than 1% of the population, you're just fooling yourself. And it's not enough to be right or to be righteous or to get a lot of views on YouTube or to build an audience or to be funny. We have to think about what actually works, what actually changes the way that people fundamentally think. And so that's why I'm really excited about this book. That's why, I'm going on tour to promote this. I'm kind of giving up everything I got going on here in LA in order to really do full-time outreach, because what I want to do is have as many meaningful 2 to 10 minute conversations with people as possible and hand them this book and say, please read this, please consider this. And I think that we've got a pretty good way of connecting with people. And I hope that anybody who's listening would appreciate that and say, like, well, if I can't find something that I can at least say might be as effective as that, well, then I'm going to contribute to Adam's efforts and help get freedom into as many hands as possible.
Thanks for joining us, Adam. But did you plug the website one more time?
Oh my gosh, I forgot the website itself. I got so carried away with the message. It's thefreedomline.com. And that's where we'll be doing everything out of from now on as we transition from AdamVersusTheMan.com. So thanks for that reminder and for bearing with us in this transition we're going through.
Hey, we look forward to hearing from you on the road.
Hey, it was fun. It was fun talking to you.